And I think it really shaped sort of the motto of my life, the thing that I think keeps me going, and that is that if I'm not part of the solution, I can't bear the problem. It would have been unbearable for me not to try to help.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Today's guest possesses profound wisdom, has clarity of self, and a no fucks given attitude. It was an absolute joy to have chatted with Beth, her kindness and insight to radiate through. I was absolutely blown away by her story as an AIDS activist. I've never heard a story quite like this. You'll see how remarkable and compassionate Beth is. Plus, hearing about her new endeavors, inverted commas, later in life is very inspiring to hear. I loved it. You'll love it. Okay, let's get into it. Beth Broderick is a 30-plus year veteran of stage and screen as a writer, model, and chef. She's widely known for her portrayal as Aunt Zelda in the long-running hit TV series Sabrina, the Teenage Witch. Beth has also appeared in over 47 features and made-for-television films, including The Merry Gentleman, which recently debuted at #1 on Netflix, and Holiday Mismatch, a new Hallmark hit. Others include Bonfires of the Vanities, Stealing Home, Psycho Beach Party, Christmas Town, When I Think of Christmas, Revenge of the Bridesmaids, and many others, as well as the soon-to-be-released Hulu feature, The Nana Project. She also recently completed filming on The Prince. She's also starred in numerous series such as Hearts Afire, Glory Days, The Five Mrs. Buchanans, and has been a featured reoccurring character on Lost, Under the Dome, Love and Death, and many others. Beth also writes a column for Substack, which boasts over 5,000 subscribers. Wit and wisdom for the ages, from the aged. I've read quite a lot of them, and they are brilliant. Links are in the episode notes. She's also a dedicated home cook who loves to travel and experience new culture and cuisines. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about her love of cooking, recently becoming a model, Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, the profound experience from working as an AIDS activist, grief, ego, rejection and moving forward, her Substack articles, ageism, thriving with age, graduating early, basically, she's a genius, plus plenty more. Before we get into this epic chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny and Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out at 3:30 Melbourne, Australian time, with the full video of the podcast to be released the following day. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's get into it. I might start here because I saw that you're a chef. I don't know if you still do this, but do you still carry around mayonnaise? And if so, why?
I do indeed. I do not travel without mayonnaise.
Tell me.
And salt and pepper. Mayonnaise, salt and pepper, and if possible, strawberry jam.
Oh.
But yes, I have to have mayonnaise because you don't know what you're going to get stuck eating, and mayonnaise makes everything better.
And why all the other stuff? Is it like, do you bring bread as well? Bring, a loaf of like...
No, it's just in case, sometimes you get stuck in airports for a very long time or whatever, or, you get to the hotel and it's too late to really order anything. So you find something from the frozen section in the little gift shop and you just got to do your best you can with it, so.
Yeah.
I travel so much. I mean, if you think about it, probably 10 years of my life has been spent in hotel rooms. So.
Wow. That's crazy. And I love how you built up your arsenal of different things. Like, I'm sure it started with the salt and pepper, then it became mayonnaise, and now it's, what did you say, the strawberry jam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you're a chef, so how did you get into that? Where did this love of food come from?
I kind of always liked it as a kid. My mother did not cook much at all. To her, applesauce was a vegetable, and that would just be fine. Or you would put the boil in bag lima beans or whatever. Like she didn't. To her credit, she didn't have much time. She worked full time and had 4 kids, so
Oh, yeah.
there was no cooking going on really, particularly in my house. But I always really enjoyed it. And then, when I was in New York City and very poor, you have to cook just to survive. And then, when I started making money and being successful as an actor, I wanted to try all these restaurants and things, but most of my friends couldn't afford it. So I just learned how to make it all at my house.
Oh,
Um, so we could try it.
that's amazing at 10 times less the cost as well.
Yeah, my husband, Scott, used to be, we'd go out for steaks or something, and he'd be like, baby, baby, I don't know why we're paying $400 for this. Yours is so much better. And I would just be like, Scott, honey, I can't cook every single night.
Yeah, that's
He would
amazing.
it just floored him that he would just never wanted to go out. He was like, it's so much better at home.
A
So
good home cooked meal done by the right person, it's the best thing ever.
it really is. And, I've always been in big cities, New York and LA, and even Austin to some degree is a busy city. And, especially with my movie children, all my movie children, I'll make dinner for them sometimes. And,
Oh, that's cute.
it really, truly, because they're all just whatever. They're grabbing something at Erewhon or they're ordering Uber Eats or they can't even boil an egg, most of them. And so, it really warms their hearts to have a home cooked meal. It's really a gesture in a big city that goes a long way to making people feel good.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm sure like when you were first starting out, when you're struggling, and we'll get into it as well, like you would have loved to have a home cooked meal and now you're actually giving it to other people. That would have been just the best thing ever as well.
Yeah, yeah. So that it keeps me in the kitchen. And
Very
I just
nice.
moved into a new apartment. I have a great new kitchen. So I think last week I made dinner for someone every night of the week. Like I was just
I'm moving to LA. That's amazing. So people just line up and get food. Is there one food that you particularly hate that you can't work with?
fuck kale.
You're not, a lot of people don't like kale. My wife hates kale. Can't go
Hate it.
near it.
I don't get it. I don't get it. I like spinach. I love every other vegetable there is. I've massaged the stupid stuff. It's just nasty.
Do
Can't make
you
me eat.
think, she'll love that. I personally don't mind it. Do you think your parents earlier on would have preferred for you to be a chef or an actor?
They certainly didn't want me to be an actor.
Yep.
Um, and neither did anybody. I was one of those kids. I was highly accelerated in class. So I was 15 years old. I was a senior in high school.
Yeah, crazy.
So it was considered a very huge waste of my potential as a human that I would be an actor.
Yep.
They
I,
actually wanted me to be a writer, which I did eventually become. But
yep.
yeah, no, they were not into it at all. And my teachers were not into it. Nobody thought it was a good idea. But it was who I was.
I want to get into that because that's one of the many things I'm so excited to talk about. And I think you also graduated at 18 as well. I could be getting
From
the,
college, from
yeah.
American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Yeah.
And you're the youngest person ever, I think, to do that as well, which is crazy.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think anybody's ever, but when they called me in when they found out I was 16, and they were like, you can't be here. You can't be 16. And I was like, well, I'm here. And it was in one of those programs where there was 100 people the first year and only 25 made it into the graduating class.
Wow.
And 25 got put into like a third year program, and then 50 got sent home. Um, they were like, you're never going to make it. And I was like, I think I am. Because I was also working 10 o'clock at night to 6 in the morning because I didn't have any money. So I worked 10 o'clock at night to 6 in the morning. And then I went to school during the day.
That's crazy.
And they were like, you're never going to make it. And I was like, yeah, I think I am. And I made it into that top 25.
As an 18-year-old, that blows my mind.
It was about 17 then. Yeah.
Yeah, even. And
Yeah.
I want to talk about the confidence side because, and I'm not comparing whatsoever, but everyone in my environment said I needed to do accounting. So I worked as an accountant. Now I'm doing screenwriting and podcasts, but I didn't quite have the confidence because everyone's saying, no, just do accounting, you'll be fine. So I just did it because I thought, that was expected of me. But at such a young age, not only to pursue the craft, but actually saying, to these college people, no, I'm going to do this and I'm going to make it. Where did that come from? That like innate knowing?
I don't know, but I knew it. I mean, when I was 9 years old, I was like, calling me. I wanted to read it out loud. Nobody in the class wants to read out loud. I wanted to read out loud. Like I knew I could make it sound good. Like I was
Yeah.
like, calling me.
Doing it
So it
wrong.
was
Yeah.
always just really what I felt called to do. Um, and I was a very determined kid, very determined. And that was just I was going to do it, and that was that. And I ended up, of course, later leaving acting behind for a while to run an AIDS program, but there was no stopping me at that time.
It's amazing, and I want to talk about the AIDS program because this is truly profound. And I've been speaking to my wife about this. I cannot believe the experience, but we'll get into it in a sec. Was it hard for you at college being, younger than everyone else and, dealing with
Yes,
everyone? Like, how
yeah.
did you,
Being
how
a
did you,
virgin and all the, and most of them had already been to college
yeah,
and were just now going to finishing school. So people were in their 20s and I was 16. Um, so yeah, that was you know, I don't know if I would recommend, I don't know if I would want my kid to do it,
yeah,
you know, because also I was so broke and I was working so hard. And so, I was just like, I will win, I will win, I will win. I don't know if I learned anything because I was so tired and I was just so determined. There was no time to experiment or think about it. I had to win, which I think honestly, in my class, and I just saw him not too long ago, Dennis Haysbert, the wonderful actor, the all you're in good hands with all states. You know him.
yeah.
He's done a million things, but he and I were like, there were 25 in the graduating class, and I'm sure we were ranked 24 and 25 of people that they didn't think he and I were going anywhere. I
Yeah.
mean, they really didn't particularly have a lot of regard for us. We were not the stars of the school, and we're the ones that still have vibrant careers at this point. So I think there might be something to the stress and the struggle preparing you for how hard this industry really is.
I feel like you got it very early, not only because, I've also been reading your articles as well. And, there was also family troubles as well. You're poor. As you just said, I don't even know how you slept. It sounds like you didn't sleep the entire time. I don't know how you factored into
I
the
didn't.
sleep.
No, I got home at 6 in the morning and took a 2 hour nap and then went to school. And then
What were you
sometimes,
running on? Like, I don't
hmm?
understand how you do. I know your drive and your will and your mantra, I will win, I will win. But it's still 2 hours sleep. That blows my mind.
It wasn't smart. I mean, and I fell asleep while driving so many times. And, I mean, I was a kid. But it was really hard for me to find a job anywhere but a coffee shop like that because I was underage. I couldn't work in a normal restaurant that served alcohol. So I had to have a cruddy job.
Uh,
I finally learned to lie in the second year and got,
like we all do. And what was that moment like when you graduated? Was it like relief? Was it just on to the next thing? Like, how did you feel?
it was relief. And I think I wasn't really mentally very well at that point. Like I had pushed myself. I was pretty wrung out.
Yeah, I would
I had pushed
imagine.
myself really, really hard. And I didn't know where to go or what to do next. And I didn't have anybody to help me really. I had my old high school friends, a couple of them were in LA, and so I moved in with them. But I ended up leaving and going to live with my dad for a while because I just needed to decompress.
Yeah.
So I didn't go right into like trying to be an actor. I took a minute.
It
Took me a
sounds like a
minute.
smart decision. When you go through something like that and for so long, you just need to unwind, process. And then what brings you to New York? I think you moved to New York, right? Or was it from New
Yeah.
York back?
Yeah, when I was 19 or 20, yeah. Um, I had been sort of kicking around and I think I watched the Tonys on TV and I thought, yeah, that's the right place for me. You know, because I grew up in Huntington Beach, you know, and had straight A's and red hair, and I was allergic to the sun. You know, so it wasn't
Yeah.
really in the surf capital of the world. It wasn't a popular combination of things for
Yeah.
a girl to be.
Same as me.
um, but you know, I got to New York, and everybody was pale, and everybody read, you know, was addicted to reading books, and everybody.
Uh,
So everybody was so much more my speed. I mean, everyone was so much more like me
yeah.
um, that I really felt like, oh, I fit in here, and this is where I should be.
And then the acting bug, like, did you start, like, how long did it
Yes,
take
I
before?
did. Yeah, I did. I really I started to try to focus on being an actor the minute I got to New York. You know, took classes and those kind of things where you audition for, like, there's 30 people in the cast, and I mean the class, and casting directors visit, and you audition if you get a chance, you know, you do your scene for them or whatever. I did that kind of stuff. And yeah, I was bouncing around. I did a few like kind of ridiculous productions of things, and you know, I mean, I got a commercial agent, so I did some voiceovers. I was the voice of Coppertone and Maybelline, a
Oh,
few
nice.
things. Yeah,
That's
but
exciting.
really, nobody knew what to do with me then. Um,
How so?
well, I looked like this little Irish Colleen, and I sounded like I sound. You know, like I wasn't an ingenue ever.
Interesting. So we'll also get into it because I feel like there's been different stages in your life where you've been kind of like put in a box and you've always been the one to like fight against the box, go, no, I'm like a well-rounded human
Hmm.
being and I can do so many different things. So how did you initially get out of that at the start? Like, was there a certain role you work with someone or did you just say, I'm not who you think
No,
I am?
I you know, I didn't know anybody. I had nothing, no ins or anything. So I was just, you know, screeching, you know, scrapping and clawing and trying to do whatever I could do to work. But then, you know, I really wasn't getting very far with that. And then I started the AIDS program.
So
So
let's talk about the AIDS program because this is truly profound, and I'm sure you think about it all the time. And you were an AIDS activist, I believe. This is a time before, but I know I've done a lot of research on this, and we've heard about this before. But you felt extremely compelled to be a part of, the activism there. What actually drew you to it?
it was, there was I don't know, I think I was 23 years old. There was an article in the paper. You know, I was a profound reader. I still read a lot.
Nice.
Um, and there was an article in the New York Times about a state senator who would put forth a bill in the state Senate to quarantine all gay men.
Oh my
They
God.
wanted He wanted to round them up and put them in quarantine. And I thought, okay, this is more than just an illness. This is a civil rights issue. They're going to need girls. They're going to need a girl, you know, like, I mean, if they're going to put them on the bus when they round them up, I'm getting on the bus, you know.
Mm.
So I went down to Gay Men's Health Center, which was literally one desk. It was a tiny little office, one desk, one guy behind this desk. And I said, I'm here to volunteer. And he was so funny. He was like, oh, really? Like, he was not having me at all. He was like, oh, really? What do you, and I was like, listen, young man, don't let somebody be alone on Thanksgiving just because you don't cotton to me. You write my name down and you write my phone number down because you might need me. And so he was like, all right. So he wrote it down. And like he really did not want, he wanted nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
And a couple days later, I got a call from the guy who became my partner, Peter Abitable. And he's like, are you really a woman? I need a woman so bad. I was like, yeah, I'm really a woman. He goes, I need you. I can't go to the grand boys. They won't let me in the building. La, 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 la. And I was like, okay, okay, okay. What do you need? Where do you need me to be? And so he's like, I went to meet him at St. John's in the village to serve Thanksgiving. And this was the very early days when life expectancy was 6 months. And
Oh,
so
wow.
that was it, 6 to 8 months max. And we had nothing. We had no medicines, nothing. We didn't even know it was called gay men's cancer. Nobody even knew what the virus was or anything.
Mm.
And like about a dozen boys came in terrible, terrible condition with Kaposi sarcoma. That they were using walkers and canes. They were
Wow.
6'2", maybe 115, 120.
Wow.
Um, and and I ran to the ladies' room because I could barely breathe because I didn't know anything about the disease or how it really affected people. Didn't had no idea what to expect. I just knew I needed to help, and I was just looking in the mirror in the ladies' room, and I was like, "Listen to me. If they can, if they can show up, so can you. You go back out there." And I went back out, and we served dinner, and through the night, I just sat with each young man and put my arms around them. And it was so clear to me because a lot of people had been abandoned by their families. In those days, people were told they deserved to die and they were sinners. And so a lot of them were dying alone and very young. And I realized, oh my God, they need their mom, and I was not a mom, but at least I was a warm female figure. Everybody needs their mom.
Yeah.
And so I really understood that I had a role to play that was important. And at the end of the night, Peter threw himself on the ground and he was tiny to begin with. He came up to maybe like, right above my waist. And he threw himself on the ground and threw himself around my legs and was like, "You can't leave me. You can't leave me. I need you so bad." And I was like, "I'm yours, whatever you need." And so we founded this program eventually we called it Momentum, um, out of St. Peter's, and we had these big dinners in the basement, and we had people come and entertain. Eventually we had a free clothing store because people lost 40 pounds in a month. They needed new clothes. We had a free grocery store. We had people came and sing. Barbara Cook came and sang once, and all the boys showed up with their flowers for her and everything. So, because isolation was a huge part of the problem.
Mm.
And so we wanted to give people out of isolation and into community. And their parents were welcome. And a lot of times, even after their child passed, the parents would continue to come to be parents for other kids.
Oh, that's so nice.
So it was an amazing thing to participate in.
There's so many things that spring to mind. And one, I admire you on so many different levels. But also, when you're going through something like this, there's consequences for you, right? Also, people think it's contagious, I believe, around about that time as well.
Oh,
And,
God, yeah.
you
Oh, yeah.
talked about sinners and all these different things. You're probably being ostracized from friends or family or people. And I think you said people didn't want to hear about what you were doing. So not
I
only
was
does it
told,
take a
you can
toll,
come to the party, but don't talk about it. Nobody wants to hear about that stuff you're doing. Um,
wild.
yeah, I lost a lot of friends and I couldn't date. I dated one guy and he came to see me at the program, and later he kissed me and then he started to cry and he said, "I know I'm going to die now um, because of you." And I said, "Well, I don't think you're going to die, but I can't guarantee that you won't die um, because I can't guarantee that.
Yeah.
We didn't know yet." Um, so I never saw him again. But
But that risk, because you didn't know for certain as well, were you willing to put what was your relationship with, the fear and potentially dying?
I just didn't buy it. I thought I just felt like if it was airborne, we'd all have it. It just didn't make any sense to
Mm,
me. And there was, I guess so. I guess there was some underlying fear, but I just didn't have any time for that. I mean, people needed help, and so I just compartmentalized it. I just decided not to be afraid.
that's a lesson the world can. We don't discuss politics on this podcast, but that's a lesson that everyone can use, and also, that call to action as well. That's wonderful. And then how
Well,
were
it
you
wasn't
meant?
something I intended to do. It's not like I just thought I'll go volunteer if they need some help. I'll help.
Yeah.
And then I met Peter, and then we had maybe a dozen people, and then we looked up one Christmas, and like 150 people came, sick boys came through into the program, and I was running down the street, going into restaurants, going, "Give me a turkey! I need a turkey or some soup or something. I have 150 people to feed. I don't have enough food." And people were sending their busboys with me down the streets carrying like giant turkeys and
Wow.
things of soup, because I could talk anybody into anything. I mean, I had the whole guys I had somebody from the New York Times who went around with me picking up donations one day. And I had all the guys in the vegetable district. They were like, the church girl needs food for the boys that she's helping. So they went on record early. This is in 1984, 85, when it was still really scary times. And they went on record saying, "Yeah, we're helping her. We helped the church girl." Because we worked out of a church. And then, the guys in the flower district, all these like, New York, mookie guys, they were like, yeah, if she needs the vegetables, we give her the vegetables.
That's so
So
great.
and almost all the restaurants in the theater district gave something every week, um, which is how I ended up being an actor again.
I
If
want to
you
pigeonhole that because I've got so many. I've been saying pigeonhole a lot because your life is so fascinating to me. And you should literally do a documentary on this experience as well. But going back to the impact that it would have had, not only have you positively impacted so many people and their families as well, you're also changing the consciousness of the planet, by working with the journalists or other people in restaurants, saying that if you do this, as a woman, they were saying that they only wanted gay men at the start. And then you are going in there and showing them, this is actually, you're showing them a better way to be. That changes the consciousness of the planet. That shows the parents, it shows the cousins, it even shows the people at the parties that you went to that don't want to hear about it because they still know something's
Mhm.
going on. That is how you make profound change. So,
I think
um,
so too. I used to tell my volunteers, because fundraising was so hard. And I would say, and I tell this to anybody who's trying to fundraise, I say, you just win one heart. Win one heart. Because there's 25 right behind it. There's 25 people that person knows. So, like in the mot, and when she's talking about writing, she says bird by bird, I would say heart by heart, heart by heart. Just win one heart at a time because that person knows 25 other people. And whether they are converted to caring about us, they're beginning to understand. And that's
yes,
the beginning. Then that's how we move forward, you know?
that's very mature of you. But when you're in it as well, what was the toll like on you mentally? Because, you're not acting, you're struggling financially as well, and you're looking after so many people and their families. Yeah, can you tell me about that?
It was very hard. I mean, I went to so many funerals. A lot of times where I was the speaker because we didn't have their families in attendance.
Wow.
Almost everyone, all but five of the people that I worked with, the hundreds of people that came through, all but five died. Um, so it was a heavy toll
Yeah.
on me. Um, to this day, it's hard for me even now to speak of it without crying. Um, But I remember going to see years later. I went to see that movie Philadelphia, and I couldn't get out of my seat. I was sobbing so hard at the end of it that I couldn't leave the theater for quite some time. So there's all this PTSD about it, but and ended up years later getting this therapist named Gary Schumer, and he was one of the first therapists to start working with people with AIDS, with gay men's cancer. So he was on the very, very early days as
Yeah.
well. And so the two of us sort of like healed each other, even because we both had the same kind of level of PTSD from it. So he understood innately what I was going through.
I'm so glad that you met someone like that as well. And I feel like also just by you like putting your hand up, trying acting, doing other things. I know acting's not your only identity. That would have also allowed you to move forward and heal in your own way as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
What did you, and we can change the subject, you go as deep as you want. What did you learn about grief? Because that sounds hectic. Like that's an experience. I don't know anyone that's had an experience quite like that.
Yeah. Well, there were a lot of people who had that experience in those days.
Mm.
The grief is I think those of us on the front lines who are volunteering, who are working every day, you bury it, you know, you bury it as much as possible because you have to move forward,
Yeah,
and I think it really shaped sort of the motto of my life, or the thing that I think keeps me going, um, and that is that if I'm not part of the solution, I can't bear the problem. It would have been unbearable for me not to try to help.
that's amazing. Do you look back now when you think about it or you have the conversations and look back and go, although there was fear, anger, everything times 100, that you showed up and that you're proud of yourself for how you went about everything?
I don't know if it's proud. I would say that I answered a call. It was a very specific call, and I answered it because that's what I felt it was really important for me to do. And I had a bizarre skill set that was really, really helpful, in that I was great at talking people into. I got Elaine to give me, I got everybody to give me stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and I produced some benefits, one at Lincoln Center. I got I had the gift of being able to convince people to come on board. And so that was very satisfying. So it taught me a lot about myself. I had no idea I had those skills till I needed them. And then there they were. And I was like, oh, shoot, I'm good at this. So so that was helpful. But I do think the overarching lesson that I took from it was, look, if you had told me in 1984 that gay marriage would be legal, that there would have been a President Obama, that all the things that have changed in our society, that obviously, it's a very fungible thing, a society, so they can change, and change comes and goes, but it 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 is real. The the energy we put into the world, it really does make a difference. And you might not see a perfect result in your lifetime, but it's still the the most satisfying way to live one's life, you know?
Yeah. And we won't get into political stuff, but I'm of the belief that we don't actually go backwards. Sometimes we go sideways, but your consciousness never like dulls. We still grow. And so,
I believe that too. I believe that strongly.
yeah,
I agree. Yeah,
nice.
it seemed like backwards, but really it's just a hitch in there, get along, because overarching number of people have moved forward. The consciousness is continuing to move forward. So I do believe that. Yeah.
Well,
And so I'll tell you, so we can sort of move on from that topic, which is I could talk about forever, but there's so much else to cover. But so there were a few people in the theater district that decided it was time for me to let someone else run the program. And they got together and they made a plot. And
what,
they
sorry?
sent a guy named Lou to walk up to me on the street. He was an agent, had a big successful theater, agency full of actors, and he was like, "It's time for you to act. You need to be an actor again." And I was like, "Are you insane? I don't have a picture or a resume. I don't have anything. I've been doing this for," because they were offering me age social service delivery teaching jobs at MSW programs because nobody had done it. And so I thought that that's what I would probably do, is go teach age social service delivery in MSW programs. I figured that's what that was the plan. And he goes, "No, no, no, I think you should act again." And I was like, "Okay, whatever." And I just ignored him. I went on, got more, and then 3 weeks later, he's like, "No, seriously, 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 I want you to come up to the office." And I was like, "Okay." And it was very hard to break into show business. Like, this doesn't happen. And so I go up to his office, and they've all been told to lie and tell me how much they want to represent me. And they pay for my pictures,
Oh,
and
wow.
they put a resume together for me. They just fucking whatever. I don't know. They made some shit up, put it on a paper. Um, and then the first two auditions I had were two casting directors who were in on the cabal, and I got both parts. And so,
How does that
so
happen?
I don't know because they were just in on it. They weren't, so I took the one in Albany at the State Theater, and I went up to do that play, and it was the first time I'd been away from the AIDS program in years. And lo and behold, it ran without me. It kept going because there were lots of other people involved, right?
That
So
would have been nice.
the cracks were starting to come into the picture, and then I ended up they were shooting the movie Ironweed up there, and ended up meeting the director, and he ended up screen testing me for a major role in the movie, and which I didn't get, but I got back in, and Bonnie Timmerman, the casting director, famous casting director, called me and she's like, "Who are you? What are you doing in Albany? Screen testing for my movie. Nobody ever heard of you." And I was like, "Well, there's a reason for that." Like, so I told her my story, and she was like, "That's it. I'm getting you a movie." And she did. She worked really hard. She got me Stealing Home, my first film.
Wow. Isn't
And
that crazy that you get rewarded in the sense and that people are working for you? Because especially at that time, people are like, who are you? What are you doing? All that stuff. And, you said this like team that were trying to really help you. That's awesome.
it was, yeah, I didn't ask anybody to do that. They just decided to. And so I went off to do this movie, and I'll never forget playing volleyball with Jodie Foster and all these guys on our day off. And it really struck me. By that time, I was 27, 28, and I hadn't been on a date. I hadn't done anything like play volleyball. Like my life had been very focused in a very, you know, tough world.
Yeah.
Um, that's when I realized, no, 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 it's time for me to let someone else do this. I need to have a life.
That's amazing. And thank you for bringing that all up. And what did that, playing volleyball teach you about play and fun? Because I feel like that's also been a theme in your life since as well, or at least being
Yeah,
aware of it.
yeah. Well, I had let that part of my life go for a while, and it was really clear to me that I needed to bring it back.
Mm,
And and it was so fun doing the movie. And Johnny Silverman became such a good friend of mine.
nice.
But also, I realized, oh gosh, I am kind of good at this, this acting thing.
So like unleash the
Yeah,
confidence.
I had forgotten that I was good at it, like I did, it had stopped, it hadn't mattered in a long time. So,
That's so cool. So you do the movie and you just feel like you're on top of the world. Like it would have unlocked a lot of things that spoken about being suppressed, but we spoke about playing fun and the confidence. Was it just like, okay, acting, I'm in my bliss? Like was it just like all upwards? And I know there's a crazy story
it
about
was pretty great. It was pretty great. They did figure out eventually, somebody figured out who I was, that I worked with people with AIDS. And so I did end up, because I kind of like, it was the first time I hadn't been identified with that in years, because I'd so strongly identified with that. And then somebody figured it out. Blair Brown figured it out. Someone was doing a documentary, and they said, "Oh God, that lady, you got to talk to her." And so I ended up, talking about safe sex and giving people all. Hey, 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 hey,
your dog's very cute.
fairness. Come here, come here. Can you sit with me? Shh. Come here,
That is a
boo.
well-trained dog. I know we were speaking off air about all the work that's gone into it, but that's pretty cool to see. My dog would have ran away and ignored me. So
Fair. Good boy. Um. So yeah. So it was. That's quite a story, right? I mean, what the heck? And then I just sort of, oh no, hey. And then I just started working. I came to LA because I thought I couldn't really break away from that identity in New York. So I came to LA, and I got very lucky.
I want to talk about this because we've been alluding to this like confidence and this drive and and your authenticity and how you have this magical skill, which is all the things that you've learned from being an AIDS activist as well, and you would have learned from other life. But all these skills then come back into acting, which I find amazing. And I believe you had eight, I think you were rejected for 8 screenings or maybe close to 10 screenings. I'd love for you to tell me this story of how you just
Oh yeah,
say,
no, those were pilots.
oh,
So,
yeah, sorry, 8 pilots
television
and close to
pilot.
10 screenings. Yep.
And you have to go, and so it's a big deal to do a test, a network test, right? So I had done 8 where the lawyers make the deal and it's just grueling and everybody's walking away. We're going to walk away. We're not going to walk away. And you go and there's 2 other actresses and they've also been through that process and you have to read in front of the whole network.
Wow.
And I did it 8 times and I didn't get the part. And I was just broken. I mean, I was just like exhausted. And they called me for a 9th one and I said no. No. It was CBS. I think it was CBS, one of them. I'd already been 5 times up for that same network
Wow.
and not gotten it. And I was like, no, I'm going to New York. And then I got a call from my agent and they're like, hey, they're doing this show and the actress isn't working out. And I pitched you and I think they want to meet with you. And so I went and met with Linda Blover Thomason and it was to play the dumbest girl in Washington, D.C. Her name was Dee Dee Star and she was real silly. And they had hired someone who was a little bit light and that wasn't working.
Yep.
And so I said to Linda, I said, listen, you want somebody to effectively play the dumbest girl in Washington, you need to hire the smartest girl in Hollywood, and that's me. And she was like, well, can you do the accent? And I was like, yes, I can. And she was like, well, okay. And I said, just so you know, though, I'm not testing. I'm not doing it again. So y'all can figure out how to work that out without me doing that. I'm here. And they did.
What an incredible story. And also just the knowing and the confidence.
And I
Because you,
ended up, yeah, I was just like, well, the one thing I think that I had an advantage is that I had been through a lot. I had been to hell and back. And so I didn't really have a lot of fear. I wasn't afraid of powerful people. I wasn't afraid to upset people. I wasn't afraid to say, yeah, no. Mm-mm. I mean, I had by that time a much more developed identity as a human.
yeah,
And a lot of actors, and I tell this to a lot of my movie children, I'm like, you got to get out of the mirror. Get out of the mirror. It's more important what you're seeing than how you're being seen. And
brilliant.
so those things were kind of locked into me. I was locked and loaded that way already. So I was just like, yeah, that's how that's going to go. And so I ended up doing Hearts of Fire, and then just boom, 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 pilot after pilot, and then
Uh,
the wonderful, amazing, magic opportunity to be on Sabrina. So.
okay, we're getting there. Your life's too interesting. We need 45 hours, but we'll get there. And I just as a side point, I love what you've said just about acting, for example. And I had a guest more recently. She also has done a few Hallmark stuff as well, Taylor Cole. And she was saying how acting wasn't her number one identity. And that's actually worked for her. And I feel like that's been really important because you've been a well-rounded, all-round human. And that's really
Mhm.
helped. But still, even that line when you're on the phone to that I think it was the casting director, and just to say like if you want me to play the dumbest character, I'm the smartest, but whatever the line was. What
Mhm.
That's so clever and so like fast as well. And do you think it was just because of your determination and your knowing that they're like, okay, we have to work with this lady? Like obviously you're very talented to get that many like pilots and screenings. Do you think they just
Well,
loved
I've
that?
been yelled at a lot for being too smart in the room. A lot of people were yelled. I was yelled at quite often. My agents were like, don't speak." They're saying that you're coming off too intelligent in the room. The directors are afraid they wouldn't be able to direct you. And I was like, but intelligent people are the most directable. They're like, well, they don't know that, so just don't speak. Just put on a simple dress and don't speak.
Wow.
Just do the reading and don't speak. And so, so I was like, well, you want somebody to play the dumbest girl in DC? Maybe you ought to hire the smartest girl in Hollywood. and Linda's brilliant. Linda Thomason was the writer and producer, and she was just like, she got it instantly. She was like, because it's actually kind of true.
Mm.
Like I played the dumbest girl on TV for years because I did it again on the 5 Minutes of Buchanan. And all my fan mail was like, we know you're really smart. People
Nice.
keep telling you you're stupid, but you're not that stupid. Like all my fan mail was people, because it bled through. You know what I mean?
Blows my mind that that happens. But also, you get, I think for a small period, you get typecast, or there was at least a conversation around people actually thinking you're stupid. And that blows my mind because that just, to me, from a screenwriting perspective, that just shows you've done the character so well. Like, and yeah, do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh
Was there
yeah,
like,
people would say to my agents, "Oh, we love her, but she's a little light. I mean, she's not. I don't think she could play a lawyer." And my agents were like, "You have no idea how torturous it is to be her agents. We have to read everything she writes. She can play a lawyer. Like trust us."
is,
Um,
is, yeah, no, no, sorry, what were you saying?
yeah. So that took a minute to break back out of that. Yeah.
But imagine being so good at your job that, first of all, shouldn't the agents and all the producers realize that you're obviously acting? Like that's their job. I can understand people who like blur the lines, but I like how you did too good of a job and that impacts you for a small period as well.
Yeah. I think in this industry, you know, there isn't a lot of imagination going on around that. They think that they know what an actor is, and that's what that actor is, and that's that.
Yeah.
Um, it's like I don't know if you read my last article, but I accidentally dyed the top of my head purple. I was trying to do some like put some thing on it to get it whiter, and it turned purple instead. And I had to do this audition, and I told my agents, "You shouldn't send it because my hair is purple." And they're like, "Yeah, but you're so good." And I was like, "They're gonna look at it and go, her hair is purple." And you can tell them till you're blue that it's not gonna be purple tomorrow, but it's purple. So that's what they're gonna go with,
Yeah.
right? So that like there is no. Well, but they all only go by what they know and see and know. I mean, it's.
That sounds very frustrating.
Well, I've been very lucky though because I've done 47 films and I've done all different kinds of roles.
Mm.
Lots of drama in addition to the comedy. Um, so I did sort of manage to keep reinventing myself and breaking away from those molds. Um, and I'm not sure how I pulled that off, but I did.
Well, it sounds like you just don't take no for an answer as well. And there's very few people that have been able to work from when you started to all the way now, and you've been getting consistent work as well. It blows my
Yeah,
mind. So obviously
been
there's
very
something within
lucky.
you where you can just like kind of like pivot and you can see like potentially a roadblock and navigate around that as
I
well.
think it helps to be nice too, to
Yep,
be nice to
definitely.
people. Like I have this cute group that I've done like 7 movies with them, and every time I go to set, all of them the crew is like, "Oh, we're so excited you're here! Everything's so much better when you're here. It's so
Nice.
great that you're here." And I'm like, "What the hell happens when I'm not here?
Yeah,
Are people mean to you? Because I'll come by and make them stop. Like it's
yeah.
just funny. So I do think that matters too.
you,
You know,
you you would think that would just be the norm. Like it blows my mind that we still need to have conversations about being nice. I would have just thought that's automatic. But then let's go to the other 10 things to, do well. But kindness,
yeah, but people
yeah.
are so. A lot of people are bringing so much insecurity and so much baggage with them. Um, it's a long haul, and you have to let your ego go.
Mm.
And I mean, one of the things, every night before I go to bed, I go down this list, and I'm like, what's in your body? And I'm like, okay, take that anxiety out, and I take it out, and I imaginary put it on an imaginary placard, and I set it on the stair, and then I go to the next one, and I just feel through what's going on. And number 5 is always ego. I'm always like, take out your ego, take it out. You're not the
That
best writer in the world, and you're not the worst. You're not the best actress in the world, and you're not the worst. You're not the best, prettiest model in the world, and you're not the ugliest. You don't need all that ego. And I just always put it down and step on it and say, get it out. Because a lot of people, to get older in this business, you have to be willing. Well, I think to get older successfully, period, you have to be able to adapt. Okay. So I'm number 3 on the call sheet, or number 2 on the call sheet, or number 4. You're not, and when you're older, people don't treat you very well. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I was on this HBO miniseries, and every time I would go, some young kid in the parking lot would see my hair and come running and go, "No, no, no, the extras don't park here. The extras don't park here. You can't be here." And I'd have to explain that even though I'm an older female, that I actually had value to the production and was expected, and that I needed to be able to park. So, like, those kind of things, they happen all the time to older people,
yep,
because ageism is a big part of is a big rampant in this industry.
yep.
And if you let that break you or wound you, it's very hard to go forward. And I'm just like, it's not personal. This is just how they've been
Programmed.
programmed. And, we've seen it in movies for years and years and years. A woman my age, if she's sexual, then she's a pariah and disgusting and gross. Or she's like, um, it's sort of drilled into, especially Hollywood males. And a lot of times people send me their script and I'm like, why are you judging the older female? Why do you hate her already? That I can see, you know what I mean? Like they always have to juxtapose the ingenue with this older woman who's not nice, and I'm like, well, let's figure out who she is before we decide she's not nice.
Exactly. And just because she's older doesn't mean that she can't be well rounded like all the other characters. And I think that's
Right.
really what we've spoken about this a little bit on the podcast, and you've also written about this as well. I've got a couple of quotes of yours about ageism, but also I think you wrote an article, everything's a bit blurred whether I've heard it or read it, but you spoke about your silver hair, which looks amazing, by the way, and how that's actually
Thank you.
which is actually like quite, and I would have never thought about this because it's not in my, so it's important that you bring these things up of how like you have to be quite courageous in Hollywood to, reveal your natural hair color, which I think looks great and it looks natural and it shows who you are as well. And how, even that example of the guys being like, oh, extras don't park here, and how that's quite a courageous decision because it's one about embracing age, but also that you might fear you never work again. And I have this quote of yours, I'm very honest about my age. I think we put this message out there to girls that you have to be perfect, that you can't get older. And that's not a message that I want to send. And it's one thing to say that, but you actually embrace it, you embody it, you talk about it, you actually live that way. And I think that's pretty cool. And maybe there is the fear there because we know how Hollywood is. And you've just said, nah, I'm going to live my life. Could you tell me?
Yeah, I was like, well, okay, then don't fucking hire me. I don't care.
Mm,
Like, I don't care. You don't have power over me. My job as a storyteller and a communicator, right? I know what my jobs are. And I don't want my movie children and my movie daughters and the young women that look up to me to be afraid to get older. And I don't want them to feel less than because their hair has turned white. And I also think that at a certain point you look older when you're just trying so hard to look young. You know what I mean? I think that makes people like, I can't stand that older people my age with teeth that are so white they blind you. Like that doesn't it's not appropriate with wrinkles. It
yeah.
doesn't look right.
Mm.
It's like, leave your teeth alone. You know, let yourself age, which is why I started modeling a year ago.
Oh, it's only been a year. Oh, nice.
Yeah, about a year and a half. It was not something I would have done when I was young,
Yeah.
because I would have thought it was boring and dopey. Um, but at the age of 60, I started when I was just turning 65.
Oh, nice.
At the age of 65, just launch a modeling career. That feels fun.
Oh, could you
You
tell me
know?
more? It feels like very empowering to hear.
Yeah, and I feel like I am giving people somebody to look to for guidance about how to get older. Um, I have an ad out that's running right now for E27 liquid collagen from Spoiled Child, and I'm in a bikini in the ad. And it's freaking everyone out because I'm 65 in a bikini, and I'm like, because my agents asked me, they're like, "Can you do swim?" I was like, "Yeah,
I
yeah,
like,
I can.
yeah.
I work out 6 days a week. I do 20,000 steps a day. Yeah, I can do swim."
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. You're an inspiration. I don't even get close to that. And I think you also do
So,
yoga as
yeah, so
well.
that's blowing people's minds.
Yeah.
But that's good. It's good for people to reorient their thinking and go like, "Oh yeah, 65-year-old can rock a bikini. Why not?"
Mm.
Um, so, not everyone can. And, and I realize I'm gifted and lucky, but it's also a lot of hard work. Um,
I'd go to that as well. All the work you do, even, around food and, you're obviously very conscious. The exercise, you do 20,000 steps. That is a motivator just in itself for me. That's amazing. Before I want to get into
yeah,
a few
15 to
things.
20, but usually 20. Yeah.
Oh, nice. And what was my question? How did you discover, did modeling come to you? Did you want to do it? Like, how did that come about?
I have a really good friend named John Conroy, who's my manager now, who is a model manager. And we were at dinner and he was like, "You?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah. Why aren't we doing that?"
Yeah.
And so we did a photo shoot. And a bunch of agents were like, "Yeah." And so I've done a couple more photo shoots and I've booked quite a few jobs. And it's just been honestly quite fun. And again, you know, by diversifying, by writing, having this writing career and having the modeling, it keeps it interesting for me, you know. I mean,
I
it's different, it's fun to learn to do something new.
I love that. That's why we do the podcast as well, to hear stories like that. We'll also talk about it, but people can check your writing. It's great. I've read so many articles. There's Substack. It's in the episode notes below. People can check it out. You spoke about ageism, the hair as well, and just your life and health, and it's really great. I want to go back to your confidence because this inspires me as well. I believe you're auditioning for the other auntie in Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, and you just kind of
Mhm.
had this moment where you're like, no, I am not this auntie, I'm the other auntie. Can you tell me about this moment?
I knew it when I read the script. I was like, I'm going to get this, and I was like, I am definitely Zelda. I am not Hilda. um I just didn't feel, I just knew, I know my comedy style. And I just thought, no, I'm a much better fit for Zelda. And my agents were like, just shut up and go read for Hilda. Like, just so I walked in, there were 40 people there,
Whoa, I didn't
and
know
I
that.
read for, yeah, the network, all these people were there. And I read for Hilda. And then I said, guys, I really need to talk to you. And what can they say? Right. And I said, I really feel strongly that I need to read for Zelda for you. And they were like, yo, okay. And what could they say? I had them on the ropes. I mean, they couldn't say no. I was standing right there. What are they going to say? So they were like, "Oh, okay, you could do that." And so I did it, and they were like, "Ding!" Oh, but then throughout the testing process, they kept having me read both roles because they were trying to get a match, a balance, and they were like, "Yeah, well, maybe
Wow.
we use her. We can put Beth back in Hilda, So, but ultimately, we all knew I was Zelda. And that's who I was supposed to be.
That's so amazing. And I like how they're like, huh, which auntie do we give you? It was like, it wasn't like a question of, no, you're not going to be Zelda. You probably could have done either of them as well. But what was this knowing you
Probably
just
could
did?
have, but I mean, Caroline was so much more perfect for Hilda, and I really am. I mean, we really are our parts in real life. I'm really, an uber nerd, and Caroline's really, outspoken and funny, and I'm like, she performs for 5,000 people, I write for 5,000 people.
Yeah.
Like we're really very, we
She
really
does stand
are
up
our
well.
parts,
Yeah.
and so it worked out so perfectly. Yeah.
And just tell me about that knowing. Was it just like, not like a voice, but just you see this and everything just kind of clicks, done, just this innate knowing? Like, because it's one thing to have that, but then also to have the confidence to just say,
I
in
don't
front
know.
of a
I
room
just
of 40
knew I was
people.
going to get it. I knew I was going to get it, and I knew it was going to be a hit, and I knew I would be Zelda the minute I read it.
Wow. You very
I don't know
intuitive
why I knew
lady.
that, but I just did. Because also, I'm a little odd. I'm odd. I'm an outlier. I don't sound like I look, and I'm a little bit of a mishmash. Like I said, when I was younger, they wouldn't know what to do with me because they were like, "Well, she's not an ingenue." But I also wasn't like sort of the battle axy character either. So they were like, and I was really hard to put as the best friend because I was attractive, and so like they were just like, "We don't know what to do," and then so I just started teaching them. They ended up making me because I had red hair when I started out, and so even if I was reading for the PG mom, I went dressed sexy because I was like, they're never gonna cast me as this mom, but I want them to remember that this is how they could use me.
Oh, you're very
So
forward
I would just
thinking.
go in and teach them, okay, and they would call my agents that she's not right for this, but we love her, so different. So then they started to figure out, oh, that's what we need to do with her.
Well, that's very smart of you and having that foresight to, kind of realize that people are a bit linear in how they see things as well, and you being able to like plant seeds and I guess that's how you've broken the mold of being able to work for so long, and also the pigeonholing and all of that, so putting yourself in a box.
Yeah,
Like,
but you also have to just realize, I mean, they're just busy and they're not thinking it through. I mean, there was many, many times when they would send me a script and it would be like four adventurous men who solve crimes and the one secretary who always waved goodbye wearing a bathing suit, like that kind of show. And I would be like, the hell kind of part is that? Like the secretary part is so stupid. So I would go in and I would say, I'm here to read for the role of Andrew. And they would be like, well, you can't. Beth, Andrew's a man. And I would say, why? Why is Andrew a man? Why couldn't he be Andy? Why couldn't he be a girl? And they'd be like, no. They never had an answer for me, right? So they're like, okay, you can read Andrew. And so I would read the role of Andrew or whatever. Like I was just like, no, I'm not going to get this like airhead waving lady. That's not going to be my part. So I'm just going to read for one of the men.
I love
And
that. There was this one guy, and he is or at the stage, very large man, black, and he auditioned for a teenage Southern white girl, and he got the part, and he was probably like 30 as well. That story blows my mind, but that goes into you. Because not a lot of people have the I call it the chutzpah to go. You know
mhm.
what? I'm going for Andrew, and like, okay, like you did it with Zelda as well. I just
I was pretty, like I said, because of my background, I wasn't really, I was free to be me. I was free to say, this seems like a silly way to use me. This is a goofy girl part, and all the guy parts are great. So I'm going to read for one of those. Like, I mean, I was just like, it made sense to me. Like, why would I do this when I could
mm,
do that?
yeah, I love it. You're an
And people went
inspiration.
along with it because they were like, she's got a point.
Yeah.
I mean, they could see my point.
And they would have also then it would have also challenged them to perhaps portray roles in different ways as well. Like you're a game changer everywhere you go. How does your
I did a couple of tests against men. Me and three guys network tested for these roles, and I didn't get them. But yeah, the guys were like, "What?" And I was like,
I'm sure that would have challenged them as well. And building up to this, you say you're Zelda, you get the role. How does your life change after that?
it was to be honest, those 6 years because it was so much special effects and we didn't have an audience. We shot 16-hour days sometimes.
Yeah,
I mean,
crazy.
the hours were insane. So even though we were aware that it was a hit, we lived in this like we lived in a different world. We lived like it was like we were underground or in a or like bats in a cave or something. We didn't really register it that much, because we were just so busy doing it. We didn't really register the effect it was having that much. Um, but it it completely changed my life forever. Um, I mean they're still my family, Sabrina, Melissa, and Caroline, and everybody. But just to be on something that it's still on every day in every country in the world, to be on something that makes young people happy, to me is the biggest. I mean,
That's
it's just a thrill. It's just like I can't ask for a better. There is no better job in the world than that. You know.
I
So
I love that. And you spoke about your, I call it a cleansing ritual before bed, which is amazing. I do something similar and I highly recommend people scan their body and try and remove all this stuff because we are our minds to a degree. And what was I going with this? Oh yeah, I feel like you would have had a very strong ego. Sorry, you would have had a pretty tame ego because you're getting all these messages, and you probably got agents saying, "I'm going to give you a 10 picture deal after this." You probably got everyone like
no,
going,
my
"Sting."
agents never called me again.
Oh, really?
No, they were like, "Sure, she's making." I was like a cash cow. And the agents that I was with when I got it, they just really never called me again. So obviously, I got different agents, and did films and stuff. But no, I didn't have those kind of expectations. I've never really been. I've never been that ambitious. I mean, I'm ambitious to work. I love working. I love what I do. But I've never been. Oh, I dream of it. Like I don't even. I don't even go to parties where people watch people get awards. You know what I mean? Like I don't care about that.
Mm.
Any of that. That's not that interesting to me at all. I love the job, but I was never really big on the publicity part. That's just never been as much my thing. I mean, Caroline used to make fun of me because when we do things, we're like there's big crowds and stuff. She could see me like really just not like she was loves the big crowds. And I would just be like, okay, I'm gonna be in my room reading in about an hour. It's going to be good. Like that's not really my strong suit.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
I never really had those kind of lofty goals. I always just wanted to work.
Sounds like pure to the
And
craft, pure to yourself, but you don't need all the external other stuff as well. Like you're not there to be the big, you know, I don't know if the right words
yeah, I
like,
just don't have that. I have a lot of drive. A
yeah,
lot of drive. I have a drive to be a great chef. I have a drive to be a good writer. I have a drive to be a good model, to be a good actor. But I don't have the drive to be a star, particularly.
exactly.
That was
How,
never really I was never like oriented that way.
I think that's a very healthy place to be as well, because then it's more internal as opposed to external as well.
Yeah, but I do think that the people I know who are stars, they have it and they needed it in order to become the stars that they are.
Yeah. I've also heard that, you would have done a lot of conventions and stuff along the way through the impact that your show had. How do you deal with, so many people? Because you've impacted so many people. I love the show personally. I think you're involved in a wedding proposal as well. How do you deal
Hmm.
with that? Or is that more one-on-one, so it's less different to like the masses?
That at first I really didn't want to do those things, those conventions. I really didn't. I was like, oh, I'm shy. It's gonna be, I'm gonna not like it. But these people, you meet so many wonderful people, and they're so sincere, and it makes their day to be with you. And how can you not love that? And yeah, this young man came into my booth, and he was really a little bit wiggly, and I was like, "Are you okay? What's going on?" He's like, "I want to ask her to marry me. I want to ask her to marry me." And I go, "Oh, okay." And he goes, "I think you should do it with you. I should do it with you. I think I should do it right now with you." And I go, "Oh, okay, who is she?" and he pointed her out. I said, "Can you?" I got the lady that was assisting me to go get her and bring her into my booth. And he got down on one knee, and Melissa Joan Hart's like this, and I'm like, so she runs over, like she's like runs over Scooty Boots under my under the stanchion, and comes in with me, and so we can be part of it with them. And then the crowd starts going, we need to film it, so somebody else was filming it, and
Oh, wow.
and he got down on one knee, and she started to cry. We all started to cry,
Yeah.
and it was very fun. And that couple visited me last year, and they brought me pictures of their wedding
Oh, how
and
nice.
all that stuff. It took them a while to get married, but yeah, that was so sweet.
And these moments, that's just one example. You're inspired. I think you went to like Cairo and like people run up to you and you think you're going to get mugged. But these things would happen all the time. How do you kind of put into perspective? Because it's like such a unique experience that very few people in their life have, where you've inspired so many people and a show that finished a while ago and it still impacts people today.
That's just a blessing. It's such a blessing to have been part of something like that, part of something that sparked so much imagination for so many people for so many years. Um, it's a miracle. And I think, you know, the work that I do, the Hallmark movies, it's such a joyful experience. And you really, you're coming into people's homes and sometimes at a very hard time and giving them something joyful to watch and to participate in. So the blessings in my life are just there's just an abundance of them, and I don't know. I think you're right. I never really think of it that way, but just the fact that I just decided that I was going to start writing originally for Huffington Post and now for my own column, and that takes some guts, I guess. Just go, well, I'm going to do it,
Mm,
and
definitely.
then to watch it succeed, and I think a lot of people would just be afraid to start. So you know, I would say start. If you have something you really, I know so many people who want to write. I'm like, well, and you have to do that.
Agreed.
You have to
Brilliant.
write. You have to sit down and do it. And I think it's always an act of courage. I think always anytime you're you know exercising your creativity, it's an act of courage, and it's like cooking a great meal. Don't invite anybody to your house that you can't say, well, I fucked it up ordering pizza, because that pressure is too much, right? And it will stop you from making something extraordinary. you know the idea that you have to be perfect, or that it all has to add up to a certain, I have to be a star, or I have to be, everything has to be. No, it's just, being a creative person. That's my whole life. That's who I am and what I do, you know.
So well said. And I love that as well. So many things spring to mind. We'll have to chat about it another time, but also just, credit to you as well. You've excelled in one field, let's say acting, but then you acknowledge this even before, that there's so many different things to you and that you've allowed yourself to excel. A lot of people go, I'm good at this. I'm only going to stay in this lane, and generally out of fear. And you're saying, no, you can be a well-rounded, all-rounded human doing everything that you like. Just, try it. I love that as well. My last
Yeah.
question before we do a rapid fire segment, just on this, Sabrina, what was it like saying goodbye to the show?
It was really hard, but it was also, it felt like time. It felt like time to move on. Um, so we never really, I mean, we've moved on from the show, but we haven't moved on from each other. We're still part of each other's lives. And I, but I will tell you, I got to do a movie with Caroline last year. It was so much fun.
Yes.
But, I think if you said, what would your dream job be? I would say to do a comedy with Melissa Joan Hart, to do another comedy with her, because working with her is like heaven. She's my girl, she's like my family. So, we But I have worked with her several times since. I've been her mom. She's always like, "You're too young to be my mom." I'm like, "No, I'm totally not. I'm the same age as your actual mom.
Oh, how
I'm not too
nice.
young."
Yeah,
But so yeah, it was bittersweet
nice.
because I was
And
ready to do new things, but it
yep.
was also hard to leave my people. So
That's amazing. It's so nice to hear that you guys are actually friends, and that's amazing. That will inspire a lot of people. I think what we'll do now to wrap up the podcast is to do a quick rapid fire segment. So the first
okay,
thing that springs to mind, but you can take your time to think about it, and I'm not going to comment on them because I'll derail them. Are you ready to
okay,
rumble?
yep.
You've kind of answered these, but we'll see what comes through. What's been your special ingredient to work all these years?
Consistency,
Um, if you could gain any skill in the world, which one would it be?
dance,
What do you aim to share with your writing?
love,
How do you not compare all your TV shows and movies to Sabrina,
Sabrina.
the
I've
Teenage Witch?
been,
Yep.
yeah. Um, the all the other movies and series have been wonderful, but there's only one experience like Sabrina the Teenage Witch. So it's singular in my career and in my life.
Does that make it hard, or that's an anomaly?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, I don't, I go into every new experience wanting to have a new experience. So I don't want to repeat what happened on Sabrina. And, I do have several families of filmmakers that I work with, that I've worked with time and time again, and so that there is still a lot of family in my life, even in the film world.
Nice. What are you most proud of?
I am everything I wanted to be when I grew up.
I know I said I wouldn't comment. Brilliant. What would you do if you knew you cannot fail?
If I knew I could not fail, probably go into politics.
Ooh, that's interesting. There's still time.
Hmm.
Um,
We don't need
before,
any more old people in politics.
we don't need more what?
We don't need any more old people. We got lots of old people. We need
What
young people.
you might be an old soul, but you're young at heart.
Hmm.
Last question before I ask how people can follow you and keep up to date with you. My voice is gone. What is the one question I should have asked you?
Um, Maybe what's it like to be 65 years old and single?
And what's the answer to that?
Pretty great. Very free. I'm very free.
Well, you've got everything. You're having people over all the time. You've got a most amazing dog. You do 20,000 steps, which blows my mind. Oh, you're living the life.
Yeah.
And before we go, how can people follow you and keep up to date with you?
I'm on Instagram, Beth A. Broderick, and my Substack, bethbroderick.substack.com, where you can read or listen. I've written over 110 articles,
Oh, wow.
um, all very different things. So, very few serious, but there are a couple serious ones. Lemonade is a story of my how I struggle with PTSD, partly because of the AIDS program, partly because of my childhood. So there's something for everybody on my Substack, and it's called bethbroderick.substack.com. It's called Wit and Wisdom for the Ages from the Aged.
Oh, I love that. And you're a very talented writer. Thank you so much. You're uplifting, you're empowering, and you embody living the best life that one can. And yeah, I love this. And yeah, thank you so much.
Very nice to meet you as well, and thank you for being so well researched and having such interesting questions.
I love how Beth encourages us to be the solution in our life. If there is something worrying us, big or small, tackle it head on. Otherwise, we can't allow the issue to consume us. Beth gently reminds us not to be the bystander or complacent and take control of the issue at hand. Work at it so you can move forward in life. Beth is a great example of how one individual can make a profound difference. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. Focus on the solution, not on the problem. Jim rom. Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.